Okay, you are live.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 3rd meeting of the Annapolis Education Commission. My name is Janet Norman, and I am the chair this school year until May. And we welcome your participation and your involvement to help make things better for the students and families in the Annapolis cluster schools that all feed into Annapolis High School. I'm going to go through the roll call, knowing that some of our members are going to join us a little bit later and some are not able to be here. So I'm going to start with Ward 1.
Hello, I'm Rachel Carr from Ward 1. Ward 1.
Ward 1. Thank you, Rachel. Ward 2. Ward 2 is Jamie Weaver, and she is not with us right now. Ward 3. Oh, you're off, Enid.
Enid Collison, Lee, present.
Thank you. Thank you, Enid. Ward 4, we have a vacancy on the council and on the commission, and we would love to have participation from anyone living within Ward 4. If you can contact Mr. Rowell or any one of your alder people and put your name forward, we'd love to have some involvement from Ward 4. Ward 5 is India Oaks, and she had let me know that she's probably not able to join us. Ward 6 is Corey.
Yes, I'm present. My name is Corey Medical, representative of Ward 6. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. Thank you for being with us, Corey. Ward 7.
Oops. Hi, it's Laura Booth. I have a horrific sinus infection, so I apologize. I sound dreadful. But Ward 7, I am the parent of a 2021 Annapolis High grad, and I have an 8th grader at Bates Middle School, where I am also PTA president.
Thank you very much, Laura. Yay, and Ward 8.
Hi, I'm Jess Packler, representative for Ward 8. And I have students at Eastport Elementary, Annapolis Middle, and 2 at Annapolis High School.
Thank you, Jess. Now on to our at-large commissioners. Grace Matthews. If you're able to unmute and just confirm that you're with us, Grace. And if she stepped away, we'll get back with her a little bit. Okay. Okay. I'm also one of the at-large commissioners. I have a 2018 and 2021 grads of Annapolis High who all went through Hillsmere Elementary and Annapolis Middle. We have 2 other at-large commissioners who are not able to be with us yet. Pam, Grace, would you like to check in?
Yes, I'm Grace. Happy New Year to everyone, and I'm happy to be alive.
Thank you, Grace. We're happy to have you here.
We're happy you're alive too, Grace.
So our other at-large commissioners, Pam Bukowski and Odessa Ellis, are not with us yet. So we're going to move right along. We do have a quorum, so I'm going to ask if someone could bring a motion to approve the agenda as was distributed to all the members. Any revision to the agenda needed before does anyone have any revisions to the agenda proposed before we approve the agenda as written? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
I'm just reading it real quick because I spent all that time. I'm just making sure I didn't miss something.
We can add anything in discussion status, unfinished business, new business. Those are general categories that I would expect we're going to go to many different topics.
I make a motion that the agenda be approved with flexibility.
Thank you, Enid.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Motion adopted. The agenda is adopted. I'm asking if there are any revisions to the minutes proposed from the November 29th meeting. That Dr. Carr took excellent detailed notes for us. Does anyone have any revisions that they'd like to propose?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, and thank you, Dr. Carr, for the very informative minutes. It's fantastic.
Yes, thank you. Okay, hearing no revisions, we will go with the motion. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. Yes, and the minutes are crucial for reminding me what should have been followed up on as I read the minutes. So I really appreciate that. It gives us focus to keep a continuity and keep accountability. Next item is public testimony. Madeline, do we have anybody that has joined us that wanted to provide public testimony?
We do not.
Okay. All right, hearing none. Next is our update from Dr. Joanna Tobin, who I introduce at this meeting as our District 6 board member who has relinquished her title as president of the board, and we thank her tremendously for 2 years of service there. So Dr. Tobin's going to fill us in. Lots has been happening.
Yes, so my family's happy to see me again. Yeah, my screen seems a little fuzzy. Sorry about that. So we had a board meeting today because we like to get working again in January, and we're obviously in the midst of budget season now. So that's, I think, probably one of the things I'm going to spend some time on. So we got our annual update from Chris Trumbauer, the budget officer for the county, with the sort of revenue projections and so forth. And obviously you can see on the recording of the meeting, anyone is free to watch that, and it's very informative. The takeaways are that the good news is we're in a pretty stable situation as a county. So we're not looking at the kind of cliff that some counties are, because a lot of the ARPA funds that the county received were spent on one-time things. So
and ARPA was the American Rescue Plan.
Recovery or rescue, or we had ESSER in education, they had ARPA, and I can never remember the full, but it was essentially the money that came
during COVID.
And so, and the rainy day fund is very secure, and there's a good fund balance and all of those things. The downside is, though, we don't have the kind of flush year that we've had over the last couple of years. And I think it's pretty clear to us from what we're hearing. Now you I'm sure saw or read about Dr. Bedell's budget proposal in December.
Not everybody has seen that.
Okay, so that was presented
December 20th, and
20, yeah, it was right before the holidays. It was the 21st, I think, and so he's asked for I think it's an approximately $67 million ask over the previous year, which is the smallest ask in the last 9 years, percentage-wise, because we know that, things are kind of settling down. I think one of the sort of big revenue drivers in the county is that the real estate, the recordation taxes are really down, and fees, partly because the housing market, A, you have high interest rates, B, you have small amounts of housing stock. So you put that together. And so the upshot is we are not likely to get all that we're asking for, quite frankly. Even though what we're asking for has been very carefully limited. For example, program enhancements that were brought to Dr. Bedell by staff. So that's where, you various departments are looking for things that will grow or bring new initiatives. I think the ask, I mean, what was brought to Dr. Bedell was about 126 million. He funded about 18 million of that. So, you know, he was very cautious and careful in what he presented to us. And he's proposing a 3% COLA for all our employees. And that's kind of in line with what we're seeing around the country. Most corporations are, I think, looking at the sort of 2 to 4% in their raises this year. Of course, our employees get a COLA plus a step. So unless someone has topped out of the hiring ladder, in addition to the COLA, they will get a step, which is essentially the raise. The COLA, of course, is a cost of living adjustment. So the COLA is supposed to be connected actually to what the cost of living is. The increases are, and 3% is about where we are. So,
The other
that's
bargaining, do the other
Sorry?
bargaining units besides the teachers get step increases? Like,
Yeah.
do the administrative staff get step
oh
increases?
yeah. SAAC, AEL, AFSCME. So SAAC are our secretaries and support staff. AEL are our administrators. AFSCME are our maintenance and custodian, and they all have their own contracts that they've bargained, which include
Step increases.
structures for steps.
Okay.
Yes, that's how it works for the bargaining units. And, you know, and we are committed to, I mean, any COLA we give has to be for everybody, right? We're not picking, unless it's an extraordinary, I mean, for example, bus drivers are kind of a different category, especially the contracted ones. So it's that is a little different. But that is the standard operating procedure for all of our bargaining units. So we're going to be having, of course, the county executive is going to have budget town halls. I have to say I'm a little concerned that the District 6 budget town hall was scheduled on a night of a board meeting.
I saw that.
So I will not be there because I have to be at a board meeting. So I'm, and in fact,
Do you remember what night that is, Dr.
that
Tyler?
is January 17th.
Yeah, I have it on my schedule. Okay.
So I would be grateful. I'm sure I will meet up with our county councilwoman and many of you if other things come to light in that discussion that I should be. I mean, I don't participate in it, but I always go and listen because I want to hear what people have to say. But of course, we have our own budget town halls next week. I think it's the 9th and the 11th.
Yes, the 11th.
And as always, we urge everyone to come out. Now, one of the things that Dr. Bedell did do was focus on more social emotional supports, more special educator positions, and more a good number of social workers and so forth. So we should finally, I hope, be getting closer to the complement we would like, certainly in this cluster. As you all are aware, we've talked about this before, for all sorts of good governance reasons, a board member can't direct the superintendent to where they put staff, because that's obviously got a lot of ethical issues. However, we keep having these conversations about the needs at Annapolis High and at other schools in our cluster. I would say the other part of this year that folks really need to focus on. And if you haven't really familiarized yourself yet with the blueprint for Maryland's future, you need to, because the implementation is really beginning to happen in a bigger way. And I think I think I've spoken about this with you all before. I'll try to be brief, but I think one of the things about Blueprint that's ultimately one of the most transformative aspects of it is this idea that the money follows the child, right? So the funding formula was changed as a part of Blueprint. So the sort of foundational amount that schools get per child is higher than it used to be. So say it's about $9,000 a year, something like that. Now, each school will get that per child. If you are a child who is eligible for free and reduced price meals, the school will get another amount of money for that child. If you are also a child who's an English language learner, the school will get yet more money for that child. And if you are a child with an IEP, the school will get yet more money for that child, right? And what that means is, presumably the resources are going where the need is. That is good news, in my view, for pretty much all of the Annapolis cluster.
Yes.
There are
Question,
others that will not be happy about it. And
can I ask you a question on that? So, at what point are children, so if they're coming into kindergarten, at what point are they identified that they need an IEP? So that money might not track to them until third grade when they get an IEP developed or something.
right. I mean, you have to be able to show the need, right? So depending on what, I mean, it could be a child who enters our system older. It could be that the IEP is not, the issue is not diagnosed later. Now, I will tell you that the philosophy around Blueprint, the goal and the point, for example, of having early, pre-K available to children is precisely to catch such things early. And
Now-
in some cases, alleviate the issue, but if not, the supports are there.
Right. Now, I've seen online a discussion in some parent groups of like, when do I have to tell the school that I'm moving? And I've written back to them like, as early as possible. So if someone moves from Annapolis to, let's say, Broadneck, or from Broadneck into Annapolis, do those schools and say that child is a farm student and an ESOL student, does the individual school gain or lose money if that student, and when does the money get delivered? Right at the July budget of the adoption of a county?
I believe it follows the usual schedule for when we finalize our enrollment, right? So I think it's September 30th or thereabouts.
Okay.
So, there has to be sort of a point in the year
Okay.
when the determination is made, how many kids are in this school and who are they, right? And so I think it's September 30th, as I recall. So we give the schools the first few weeks, or the state gives the schools the first few weeks to sort of have things settle. And then at that time, the state receives the sort of final accounting. So this has always been the case, right? If you have a ton of kids move out of a school in October, the school that loses them essentially hangs on to that money for the rest of that year, right? Because there sort of has to be a time when the money is allocated.
Delivered. Yeah. But if there's something that we, the community, need to know about getting, I've advocated to parents that they need to get the child registered as soon as possible for the teacher allocation, as you all are planning.
Yes, yes,
But I didn't know
yes.
if there was a money tracking when the money arrives type
I
thing.
mean, we have actually historically very good projections that have come out of our offices,
Mhm.
generally more accurate than a lot of the state stuff about sort of broadly what our population is doing. I mean, that's where we get the numbers showing occupancy and so forth.
Right, we're
But
just.
the specifics of whether there's an IEP or that kind of thing is a little trickier. We have sort of, again, broad numbers on things like English language learners and so on, because we have some demographic information, but you know, you can't get 100% granular on a lot of that until you actually have the children in the school. So.
And if anybody else wanted to ask Dr. Tobin a question, otherwise we'll let her move to the next topic.
I mean, that's sort of the big thing right now. We continue to undergo our strategic planning process. I am one of the board members, and our student member is the other one, Eric Lynn, who is sitting in essentially on the strategic planning steering committee meetings. That will come, the plan will come before the board, I think, in April. And that's obviously a very critical process, because that is about what the next 5 years are focused on for the school system. We will not be going through the next phase of redistricting until January, February of 25. So we kind of have a little space while we implement the North County, northern part of the county changes. So that's kind of on the back burner, so to speak, until 25. But
To Jess, did you have a question?
Sure. Were you finished, Joanna?
oh yeah, yep.
I was just wondering, is there anywhere that was a really, I think, helpful summary of Blueprint, but I know there's a lot of people obviously who aren't watching tonight, or, you know, just in general. Is there anywhere where, I know there's the Blueprint website, but it's like a lot and it's overwhelming. And like, even if you've explored the Blueprint and even if you know what you're looking for, it's still really difficult to, is there anywhere where it's like summarized that we could send it out to our, you know, constituents and people who are, is there anything that is a good leave behind that we have of that?
We were actually had a conversation about this today. I'm going to go back and look again. I mean, we have, obviously, as you said, on our website, a whole section on the Blueprint, but it is pretty tricky to navigate all of that for your average person. I'm going to have another conversation with our coordinator and with Dr. Bedell about that, because here's the other thing I want to leave you with about Blueprint. Obviously, the general session is about to start, and Blueprint is state law. And there is going to be, as we anticipated, a fair amount of tweaking that has to happen, because you don't roll out big legislation like this and not have, you know, then a realization, oh, well, if we actually do this, it leads to this, this, and this. So we have to adjust some things. But I think it's fair to say you should know that for many reasons, not the least of which is the one I laid out, the money follows the child. There are not only portions of our county that are not going to be happy with it, but whole counties that want it unwound. And I think that would be, for this district, I think in general, but certainly for this district, a real disaster. Because we are sort of on the cusp of getting at some foundational inequities and problems that we have had in our system that Blueprint is really designed to begin to address. And so I would urge all of you to pay attention and maybe speak with our state folks as well about where we are with that and about, I mean, this doesn't, we need to leave behind. And I want to talk, as I said, I want to see if we've got something or if we can get something, and I'll be in touch with you on that. But assuming people have some knowledge of what's at stake here, I think there also need to be those conversations with our state reps about how important this is. Because, you know, I'm just going to be honest here. The money follows the child really undercuts the way the politics of education have worked in this country for the most part, because it means you can't simply, to be flip, show up in matching t-shirts at a Board of Education meeting,
Get what you want.
and force the issue, right? It really means that there's a structure that is data-driven that ensures the resources go where they're needed. But this is going to be a hard lift because it's just not the way things have been done. And if we get scared now and walk away from this, the other thing that's going to happen is it's going to be very easy to say, oh yeah, one more thing where they threw money at education and look what happened, kind of thing. So I would just urge those of you who are advocating for our public education system to really follow this closely. I'm happy to come talk to any groups who want to understand Blueprint more and what's going on here, because there's a whole host of things that, I mean, we just had a presentation today on 2 new courses that we approved at the high school level for our Education Completer program. Where students will walk out of high school. Now, currently it's only in 5 schools, mostly in the northern part of the county, but once it's fully fleshed out, they plan to put it in all of our high schools. You know, this is because of Blueprint money that we can do this, that students can come out with that certification ready to move into that in their next steps. So, you know, there are all sorts of things going on with Blueprint. It's big, it's complicated, but this core issue of the money follows the child is revolutionary and is going to make some people very uncomfortable.
Okay, awesome. Following up on that, I saw the press release just sent out that on January 8th, you in the board have a legislative breakfast with elected officials. So I know that our state electeds or their staff would be there. Who from the city is often invited to this? Do you have
I believe we invite everybody. We have a standard sort of elected list, right? So it's everybody in the city, everybody in the county.
So that's the alder people, the aldermen, and
we don't, to be honest, the alder people don't usually attend. But we invite them. I mean, it's tricky. I understand the city, you know, the schools are kind of this, you know, odd entity that live in the city but aren't controlled by the city. But we always invite everybody. So,
okay, and because that's a question I have. William is going to help us figure out who is planning on attending, and the Education Commission would like to reach out to those members of our city representatives who are going to be there and kind of feed them some appropriate questions to ask all of you on the board and ask Dr. Bedell from the funding sources.
Yep.
So we do want to know that. And I spoke at the city council meeting, I don't know when that was, November-ish, and asked our city representatives to please speak up for our students, families, and constituents, because we have no one else to do so for us. So I do see that as part of their duties to the citizens, and hopefully we'll have some turnout from their offices. But that should be a good meeting. So everyone here, you know who is your elected representatives, and I can send out little links to let you know if anybody wants to look up who their elected reps are and how to contact them. Sarah Elfreth, Shanika Henson, and Dana Jones would love to hear from you and what you would like to see out of the AACPS from the state monies provided. So please do reach out and contact them. Jess, you had a quick comment or question?
I did. A couple things. One is, are you planning to go to that, Janet, and speak on behalf of the Education Commission, or?
I have not been invited, so I don't know.
It's like a lot of the legislative breakfasts. It's what it sounds like. It's really for elected folks. It's an update for them.
Gotcha.
So it's a different thing. But the other thing, I'm sorry, I wanted to add one other thing that I forgot to mention from Chris Trumbauer's report. So the county's in good shape. The state is doing a lot of belt tightening, and we're down a lot of money from the state for education.
Okay.
So I think that's something that if and when you speak with your state electeds, that's really an important conversation to have.
That's very
And I
good.
think the other thing I was going to say is I think it's an important conversation to have with our city elected officials, because I know that there is a common misconception that education is a weird place. But all of the children that are being educated in our city schools are city residents, and they deserve the same exact representation as everybody else in the city, and their parents are taxpayers in the city. And regardless of whether the schools are run by the county, it's all part of the same thing. It's not like we're sending them to a boarding school in Texas, right? They are going to school in the city. Decisions made by the city affect everything from crossing guards to after school care to clubs to transportation to everything within the city, including whether teachers can afford to live in there and whether there are jobs and workforce development and every part of thing. So I'd like to, for my goal for 2024 is to get away from that misconception that there is somehow the city has nothing to do with education, because the city should be at that legislative breakfast. There should be somebody from the city, some elected person, no offense, Will, but also an elected person from the city at our education commission. They should be reaching out to the education commission whenever anything education is brought before the council or before any of the committees. I mean, we have to stop within the city of Annapolis thinking that education is an other. That would be like saying, well, you know what, we're not going to do anything with the Naval Academy because that's the Naval Academy and their federal government. Or we're not going to do anything with the state because that's the state and it's a state government, right? I mean, there are plenty of ways that the state and the city work together all the time, and the state and the Naval Academy and plenty of other non-city things work together with the city and within the city. And in education in particular, it is city residents, city children, city tax money that is, that it's all the city people. So I just think it's really important. And then I'd also like to request that on the other side, in the county and the AACPS and in the board, that happened as well, right? That there has to be more purposeful connections, right? So when meetings are held regarding the city, when meetings are regarding the Annapolis cluster, or when meetings are held, there is a concerted effort on all sides, whether it's the city making sure AACPS is there, or AACPS making sure the various aspects of the city are there, or when there are issues that are, that come up, when there are incidents that happen within the city, or incidents that happen within the schools. I think there just has to be more of a concerted effort to say, we are not one or the other. We are all together. This is our community, and we are all working for the best of our children.
Yep. I'm going to turn it over to William. Thank you, Jess. Excellent points.
I wanted to comment on what Jess was saying, but also Dr. Tobin, thank you so much for the information that you gave, because I 100% agree. And we've been talking about this in previous meetings about activating and really establishing the utility of the Education Commission. And I 100% agree that there should be regular check-ins and meetings, whether it's at a city council meeting or it's, something similar to what happens with the planning commission.
Mhm. Yeah.
And other commissions, right? Because it should be prioritized. And in terms of what happened in the past, I agree. It probably wasn't prioritized or elevated, not because of nefarious reasons, but probably it just didn't happen. But I think even in this conversation right now, now's the time. I mean, it's a good way to really create an avenue and a lane for these conversations with the people who are elected and charged with representing, their constituents. So I think, I won't say that's easy, but I think it's something we can kind of say this year, we're going to compel the city council and others to kind of create space for these kind of conversations aside from just planning commission meetings. If I'm hearing you right, Jess.
If I could just jump in, because I agree with both Jess's and your comments, Will. I would say, COVID was obviously odd. I was elected at a moment while we were in the midst of that. But I think it has taken time also for people to understand that there actually is a representative on the Board of Ed representing the city, right, as well as the area around. And so, I was kind of mentioning the fact that the county town hall was, scheduled in direct conflict with the board meeting, to sort of say to people, I'm here too, kind of thing. And this is an important thing for me to be able to hear and to see what's going on. And I say that because I've sort of very slowly taken it upon myself, kind of one by one, to forge some of these connections. There was an issue that the planning commission's working on and from the city, and they contacted me and they said, well, we'd love to sit down and talk to you because we don't know who to go to in AACPS, right? So we sat down, we talked about it. Now we've got those connections. Now we're going to have that conversation. And I will tell you, the other sort of slow moving part of this has been, it's slow, it just takes time. Dr. Bedell has a different approach. And his chief of staff now being on board similarly is very much about forging these connections. And so again, we're moving in that direction. As I said, I think at the last meeting I attended, I mentioned, thanks to Will and to the mayor, this administration, I think we have more communication than we have had. Yes. For which I'm really, really grateful. And that's also partially due to the soldiering work that the commission members have done over many, many years to, keep hammering home that our children, in a sense, get lost too easily in the bureaucratic space, right? So the fact that the schools, the AACPS is a quasi-state agency, right? We don't report to the county. We don't report to the city. We report to the state, and yet we're mainly funded by the county, right? So it's all very, it gets very messy. But the bottom line is these are our kids. So when there are issues that will impact our kids, that's what we need to be focused on, right? So I think just to say the good news is, from where I sit, is that we are beginning to sort of show people those lanes of those lines of communication, how to do it, that people are willing on both sides, and that yes, if something comes up that would impact AACPS, here's a way to begin to have that conversation, or vice versa, and just make it a more transparent process. And I think we're going to get there. But I appreciate you bringing this up, Jess, because that's kind of one of my goals for this year too, because I just think we need to push this further to make sure that we're not losing, our kids just don't keep getting lost in that sort of hole in the middle that nobody seems to be able to name.
Mm-hmm. I do think
I
So,
just want to bring up my intention for the commission is exactly that this year also. That as a 30-year federal employee who was in regulatory, we always had accountability measures. I always had a deadline. I had to produce something. I had to, there were requirements of me as a federal employee. And that everything had to be transparent. And so I want to establish those same structural connections between us because we are having to operate in a bureaucracy. So, if Janet's out sick for 3 months, the world doesn't fall apart because Janet and Fred had a personal relationship that got things done. I want a structural relationship that, these are the commissions and functions that you get in touch with, whoever is sitting in that seat. This is who you talk to. This is how you operate within the bureaucracy of AACPS. And I want us all to have those, that efficiency and effectiveness that does not depend on, well, does Joe like education, or is, his pet project, space travel, whatever. That we have to get to be a more professional. I mean, it's great that Annapolis is a small city and we have the personal connections, but we have to raise the professionalism so that we operate on really transparent and connected ways and
Yeah.
And move towards that.
yes, and that also breeds so the I 100% agree with you, because I think the accountability and having those measures in place breeds equity. And a lot of the conversation is about, quite honestly, about equity, and about, and not racial equity per se always, or socioeconomic, but just equity in terms of equal representation, information, and advocacy for all of these schools. So I agree with you 100%. Along those lines, really quickly, I think we had talked before, along with accountability, also, I think in terms of utility is also providing those, setting up a lane or some type of mechanism by which recommendations from the Education Commission, regular up-to-date recommendations that hold all of those stakeholders accountable, I think is really important as well, because it's kind of on the periphery, and it's like, well, we can kind of pay attention to this if it's something really serious, or if Jess reaches someone and sends an email or posts something, then people might talk about it a little bit. But it should, you shouldn't have to do that, right? You should be able to have an avenue that's, that's equitable, that says we're centering education and we're centering this commission in this area that's important to us. Sorry for that long thing, but
no, that's perfect. And that's why I'm kind of hounding members like, are we going to have a quorum this month? Because I want us to be able to pass motions. We have to have a quorum to pass motions. Tonight, I want to introduce a motion to have one of the social worker positions that Dr. Bedell has proposed to be located at Annapolis High. And I want that clear as a bell, that this is what is needed. And based on the meeting that was held previously with AACP, the September 18th meeting that I just sent out the notes for, that was held with everybody else. I want us to make that point clear. That is also advocated by the social worker at Annapolis and the principal at Annapolis and everybody else.
Can I just suggest one thing that Will's comments bring to mind? So the board has the Citizens Advisory Committee, right? The CAC. And there's a way in which, not exactly, but the Education Commission could function in a similar way to the mayor and the administration, right? That's your advisory group with regard to education. And one of the things we do when I was president, the president and the vice president sit down with the head of the CAC at the beginning of the school year, sometime over the summer, and sort of go through some things that are coming up. And now the CAC's job is really to often go out and do some research and bring back recommendations based on the fact that they represent the various different clusters around the county on policy issues, for example, certain policies we're going to be reviewing. But it seems to me, to Will's point, that might be something that the Education Commission could be doing, a way of kind of setting up a clear way of making sure that what's coming through the commission, through its members and their representation of their wards and at large, is getting to the administration with, a really clear sense of what's coming, who said what, why this is important, all of these things. Because I think that is where the equity part of it comes in, right? You're really getting that representation, and it has a cyclical effect, right? When people see that that's how the commission functions, I think it encourages people to want to be on the commission, right? Because
Right. If you're not effective, people don't want to waste their time.
Right.
Yep. And if
So-
you're not listened to, people don't want to waste their time.
I just sent to Will and then to the Education Commission email, Janet, to you as well. The recommendations that we made way back in 2017 for the transition team. Just keep bringing it up until I die.
Yeah.
But that was actually one of the things that was part of what was on those recommendations was the ADC chair reports to either an existing standing committee like Housing and Human Welfare on the city, or a new one that represents recreation and education, because right now at recreation, I think reports to transportation or something ridiculous anyway, or at least did in 2017, but also that it requires twice yearly in-person reports to city council. From those, the mayor will make recommendations regarding education priorities in the city to the superintendent, meeting at least twice a year. And so, and there's some other things in there as well. But I think, I totally agree. There are some ways that we can just create more of that functional, so that, and also that, back when I first started on this commission, and when a lot of other, probably like half of us did, we used to have a fantastic representation every month from principals and teachers. Principals were encouraged to attend. Teachers were encouraged to attend. They were encouraged to come. Anyone who was in the schoolhouse was encouraged to come and attend and bring up their concerns and their needs, but also their
Thanks.
pros and their all the good things. And we had people from AACPS at every single meeting, and it was a really great way to work together and to hear what was happening in the schoolhouses, not only from our own personal view and from what we're hearing. As I said at the last meeting, when I speak here, I'm generally speaking, obviously I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for all the people that I hear from all month. I collect opinions and ideas all month long from the whole, but anyway, it was also great to have those voices there. And I would hope that that's something that we can get back to, even if it's virtual, maybe, having it more able to, I think we're past the point of Zoom bombing concerns. And so maybe we can be able to have a more public virtual meeting, or go into some sort of hybrid thing, but also get back to having more of AACPS involved. Hearing from the principals every month and hearing what their needs were was a really, really important part of, and what was going on in their schools was a really important part of it. And I think we've lost a lot of that. I had one thing, Joanna, this is just for next, so I don't have
to get off in 1 minute, Jess. So
yep, I know. I just was, Odessa's on here, and we have talked about this over the past month. Odessa's been asking for a very long time about programs specifically to help kids who have fallen behind in early middle school or early high school. And as many times as we've talked about it, I apparently missed, or maybe it didn't come up, or maybe I just missed it, the ACE program. And I only found out about the ACE program when I saw one of our friends walking through the neighborhood when they should have been in school, and I gave them a ride, and they were telling me all about this new program that they were going to. And it sounds, I just wondered, Joanna, if you have a second to just tell Odessa about the ACE program, or if we can have somebody, I know that Bob and Jolynn aren't here tonight, so they can't speak about it. But I think that program sounds like just a phenomenal example of exactly what Odessa's been asking for, and that gap that we have for our kids who just need a little bit of help to get to a better place so they can be a better them, right? And better student. And
so here's what I'm going to say. First of all, I know some about it, but I hesitate to give a discussion because I don't want to get anything wrong. And so I'm happy to follow up with Bob and Jolynn and make sure that we get that information to you. But I think the other part of this, I would like to suggest that back in 2019, early 2020, I can't remember, the meetings were in person. I understand that's inconvenient, but we were going to different schools.
Yep.
And I actually think that's very, very valuable. Now, I understand the problems of getting people in person to meetings, but I do think, I think there are reasons that meetings sometimes work better in person, but I also think
we've tried. We were told we couldn't have the school buildings because the teachers were occupied and it wasn't feasible. So I've tried to have them.
I know. And so I'm going out on a limb here and the staff may kill me, but, I do think that there's value in finding some appropriate, not every time, but some way of having those connections. Because we have a commission. The city is different. We have this extra layer of government, extra layer of advocacy. And I think having a way to connect directly with some of the staff and the principals, we're talking about once a year, maybe, to be in a building, might be a valuable thing to try to reinstate. And I will take the hits for suggesting this. But I will see what I can do. So anyway, I am going to have to jump off. My apologies. I have 2 sick people in my house that I have to go take care of. But thank you all, as always, for inviting me. I will follow up with you, Janet, or I will follow up with Jolynn and Bob about the ACE program. And hopefully, as we got the information about the magnet enrollment, we will follow up on this too. Okay?
Appreciate the previous follow-ups. Thank you so much.
All righty. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank you, Joanna.
Okay, that was very informative. So just building on a couple things she's mentioned, I'm going to go into a little more depth. So I spoke with Bob Mosier right before the meeting. Tomorrow morning, a press release is going to go out regarding the procedures for the public testimony on Tuesday, the 9th of January. And that's going to be at the Old Mill High School building at 6 p.m. And on Thursday, the 11th of January at the Riva Road Board of Ed office at 6 p.m. Here's how it's going to work. Old Mill on the 9th is in person only, just because of the facility. On the 11th, there will be the option set out in the press release for virtual testimony. And so virtual testimony, you can sign up starting tomorrow morning, and it will be cut off by next Monday, the 8th. At the Riva Road building, there will be in-person and virtual on the 11th. You can only attend one of the meetings. I mean, you can only testimony at one of the meetings. You can attend both. But we would like it if as many commission members can either write in comments, attend in person, or attend virtually to speak up for the needs of the Annapolis cluster. And, speak up from any perspective you see. I know, Jamie, I know that Dr. Bedell has put in for more special education teachers. So if you think that in the elementary school that you're seeing, or you're hearing from other schools, go right ahead and speak up for anything that you've identified from your perspectives. But that board does not want to see my face again as the only person speaking up from the Annapolis Commission, because they just get tired, and I think they don't believe it as much. They don't believe the need if it's only me there.
Well, is it possible we could, not to give anyone any more work, but I know we had talked, Janet, over the
Yes.
holiday, we had spoken about like a one pager or just bullet points of
Sure.
some of those asks, because I'm sure we all know the more people that show up in person, it just sends a message. It's very hard for them because, they're human. You can tell they don't want to disappoint like 20 people, right? So I would be interested myself in going for sure. And I would love to try to get as many parents and some others as I can. And if we can have just a couple bullet points so that we're all kind of somewhat in line on what some of those recommendations are and the things that we do support, I think that would be powerful. So if you'd like, if possible, maybe before the 11th, we can come up with something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then we can show up with maybe like a standing room only crowd,
So I'm going to need input from other levels, from the elementary level and the middle school and high school level, for some of those bullets. I'm happy to coordinate and phrase and do my liberal arts education working on those sentences. But I'm going to need your input on that as well. So.
And to Will's point, I think that if you don't want to talk, but if we have somebody that will talk at each one of them, right? And then we get people to show up. I mean, that's how it worked. That's why Crofton has a new high school, right? That's why Severna Park got their addition, because everybody showed up in their Crofton Needs a School shirts and their Severna Park shirts. So if we all show up, you wear your Eastport Elementary shirt or your Germantown shirt or, whatever, and we get parents, maybe it's not you, but you get 5 people from your school to show up, that makes, and then just stand up, not that you're going to speak, Janet, but just if Janet's speaking, then everybody there for the Annapolis cluster stands up and says, look, these are what we're looking for. That can be really impactful.
Yes.
Right. I think that would be great.
Yes.
I do want to recognize the commission members who made an effort to attend the December 11th meeting that AACPS had kind of urgently or hastily, tried to get things off the ground to talk about the youth violence issue and youth programs in the city. So I know Odessa was there, Grace was there, Ms. Sims was there with us, Laura, Jess, and I were there. If anyone else is there that I missed, but it was a start. It wasn't a long enough meeting. People had like 10, 15 minutes to discuss, and that wasn't enough to get into the depth, but let's keep that momentum going where we are asking for accountability and issues. I had the opportunity to sit next to 2 of the high school leaders of the Black Student Union who brought up great points that some of this, the social emotional needs that have been identified in the notes that Will shared with us from the September 18th meeting, those are not being met with the reduction of Panther Hour in the high school. Kids have all this COVID-related baggage of social needs that were disrupted, and they don't have that many opportunities to see people, talk to the friends, build connections. With the reduction of Panther Hour times from 10 per week to 4 per week.
They also don't have enough time to get to their teachers and get the help they need. I mean, by the time they get in there, if there's 2 teachers and, if there's 2 students going into a classroom,
25 kids.
Get help with the teacher, 30 minutes is just, I mean, it's, it's something we definitely need to revisit because it's just a lot.
But to hear the kids talk about it is like, kids are just disconnected, and they don't have the friend group to lean on and talk to during the day. They're just, and these are, the achiever students that are telling us this, like,
right. And then they don't want people to be on their technology, but then you've taken away the only other way for social connections to happen. So then they're forcing kids to be more, right? The only way I can communicate with my friends is through through my phone. So, yeah, there's a lot of, it's a wide-ranging issue.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm gonna get us back. So Will, do you have something? I have Laura, can you pop up the one picture from the rec department about teen night?
Yes.
I have the flyer that the rec department, and it sounds like a great program. I'll let Will describe it, but we've already shared it to the Annapolis High community Facebook page, and people have shared it from there.
Yeah. So it's a fun night. I mean, it's a night, it's an opportunity for young people to come together in a safe environment, kind of a neutral space, and have fun. And that's something Rosalind Johnson has been doing since she came on as the director. I think she's doing great things at Pitt Moyer, Stanton Center. We have a plan for Stanton Center. She has an amazing new plan that we actually pitched before Senator Elfreth, Delegate Jones, and Delegate Henson for monies to redo the Stanton Center, which is much needed for teen programming and STEAM stuff. It's pretty exciting. So this particular, it's really small on my screen, but I think it's the 19th of January.
Yep.
That I have on my sheet. And that's from 7 to 11 p.m. It's totally free. We're working on transportation and some other things, just, trying to eliminate all the barriers to young people coming together, because there's such, like, the narrative is that young people are, have issue with everyone in every other community. And we know, a lot of that is perpetuated by adults and people who don't really, move in that world, such as myself. I readily admit I'm not a teenager anymore, so I don't understand how they communicate completely. I don't understand how they congregate, but any opportunity we can create for them to come together and do some positive things and just have fun is always good. So we're excited about that. The other is opening day, of course, for General Assembly, which is coming up January 10th. There are several receptions and several, opening day and opening week convenings that are happening. I'm still trying to, every year I try to wrap my head around who needs to be where, because I do think Janet and I spoke briefly even about some legislative events that are happening, and the truth of the matter is it's really an opportunity, again, for us to center education. And it doesn't matter if it's state delegates or state senators or even the governor himself. All of those are opportunities to be able to forward and advocate for things that are important, for our school system. So what I'm going to do is, when I get most of the events and most of what's going on, I will forward it so that way, it can be shared. I do know, again, about opening day stuff, and I know we're having a legislative reception, but I was told that it's not open to, like, the general public to attend. I do think, again, I don't want to get in any trouble, but I do think, again,
we are appointed by the city council to be elected representatives to convene, to coordinate between AACPS and the city.
Yes,
so,
and
mhm.
again, because I'm a city employee or others are city employees, that does not mean that we're closest to the issues. And parents and people who volunteer their time to be on commissions and work in that capacity are closest to the issues. And those folks can be the ones who are best able to articulate I believe, to some of these policymakers, right? Like, okay, this is what we're grappling with. This is my area of, why did I get fireworks behind me? This is my area of expertise. So
Yeah.
I'll find that information. So General Assembly coming up, which is huge. You
Can
all brought.
I build on that for 1 second, Will? So I did attend an event hosted by Dr. Tobin, and County Executive Pittman was there.
Right.
And I went up and introduced myself because I don't think he knew who I was. And he said, "Oh, I didn't realize that the city had an education commission." So I said, yes, I've been on it for 12 years.
Yeah.
And so it's things like that, like get your face in front of a decision maker and let them know what you do, who you represent, what school you've been involved with, what you're trying to do for kids.
Yeah.
Just have them get to know a face and a role.
Not to mention it's the efficiency of it, right? I mean, if we're spending, everyone here is involved and working, there's no reason to have some new committee or some new group or spend a lot of time doing research that Janet already has in her head, or, that we've already discussed 15 times that's the whole point of having an education commission, a recreation advisory board, a transportation commission, right? All of those boards is so that efficiently, okay, this is an issue. We need to discuss. We're going to give it to the people who are the, relative subject matter experts in the field in the city, and then have them bring it to us. And if we have questions about it, we ask them rather than having to reinvent the wheel every time. I think across the board, I think the city could utilize the commissions better for that reason,
Right.
Will, I'll go back to you. I just want to
So-
give that example.
Excuse me.
Yes,
So
Odessa.
that's our task. So that's our task. That's our mission this year, right? We're gonna
Odessa had an issue question. Odessa.
Oh, okay. So who did you say, who was the person that said that they didn't know that there was an education in Annapolis?
The county executive.
And so, piggybacking on what William is saying about our tasks for the year, I've been thinking about some things too. And, maybe we need to be more aggressive in our stance on some of these things that's happening in the Annapolis schools. And I saw where, I can't find it on my phone, but I saw where you sent some information about the magnet programs and the kids, the number of students.
The number of students, yes, I sent it out to the entire commission just before the meeting, is a follow-up from Ms. Davis, our regional assistant soup, of the number of Annapolis cluster children in magnet programs, whether they're the IB program, the NROTC program, the STEM program at South River, everywhere. So how many students of our students are in those programs?
Okay. So are we going to be able to discuss those numbers, tonight or later on?
We can pull them up because I put them on there for Laura to put, but let me just have Will finish his updates and then we'll move to part of the agenda. But thank you, Odessa.
Yeah, and I definitely provide. I'll rush through this so I can give you all time to discuss that because I'm interested in that myself. So as I said, opening day, City Dock revitalization plan goes before the Planning Commission next week. Burtis House, which is the structure and house that is right at the City Dock, goes before HPC, which is Historic Preservation Commission. We mentioned teen nights, also the comprehensive plan. And I'm not sure how many of you all are involved or have full knowledge of the comprehensive plan that the city has undertaken, but it's incredibly important because it's truly ecosystem based, and it involves literally every education to housing to resilience to everything. So that goes before the Planning Commission tomorrow at 7.
Yeah.
So anyone who's interested in attending, it's at City Hall at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And
just to build on that, I spoke with Mr. Eric Lashinsky today. He and I had a conversation early December because I had submitted comments on the draft plan when the comment period was open on behalf of the Education Commission. the components on education, I think we talked about previously, were so vastly lacking in those chapters. It was difficult. And so he and others have made great revisions that you can see in pink text in the current, and I'll send the link around. That was one of the 12 things I was meaning to get to you guys that he just talked to me about. Was just published. The revised draft is out. All the revisions are in pink. You can tell what's newly been added. They flushed out a lot more on education and gaps in sidewalk coverage. They put in a lot about the requirements for kindergarten through elementary school, through middle school, walking radius distances, and the new like transportation hub issues out by Annapolis High with the MBA office, the Social Security office, the Heritage Pool, the Heritage Complex, and the county pool. So I threw in a whole bunch of small comments that they really built upon. And that's one of the other structural things, because I called them up and kind of was aghast that the Education Commission wasn't consulted like the other commissions, like planning was involved deeply in that. And Odessa, is that your phone that you need to mute for a sec?
Yeah, she may
Oh,
need to.
I'm sorry. I thought I was on mute.
No worries. But just structurally, like our input and the things that Jess has taught me and Laura and everybody else, our input mattered greatly in that comprehensive plan that's now going to rule Annapolis for the next 10 to 12 years.
Absolutely.
So structurally, we need to keep, pounding our way to the table to be involved with these things.
Yes.
Not because I don't hear myself talk, it's like somebody here needs to be involved in every discussion.
Well,
room where it happens.
Well, I commend you for that. I commend you because you're right. It does live in like, it just lives forever. What's in there. And I don't think people understand like the weight of comprehensive plans, that they actually have a lot to do with what happens, in terms of the trajectory of planning, of development, of everything in the city. And so I commend you for that. And Eric's awesome. Eric Lashinsky is incredibly responsive and super smart. And
we're going to have him next on January 24th at our next meeting.
Yes.
So he is doing, in the next week, he is doing the what is it? School utilization chart for the city schools. He's gathering all that data and crunching out that school chart that is to be done twice a year. And so he's going to have that done next week. He's going to come on our 24th meeting, and I'll have that chart sent out to you beforehand. We can talk about, any assumptions that are being used in the ratios, previous assumptions when I worked on it, and Jess has been on redistricting, and Laura and Enid, I don't know if you have also been on the redistricting, and other folks have. They included ratios, like each house is going to generate X number of pupils. And they had ratios for the city of Annapolis that they might still be using currently that came from assumptions 20 years ago. Well, demographically, we were a whole different population 20 years ago. Yep. And the number of elementary students per house and stuff is different now. And so we want to make sure that the number crunching and the assumptions are accurate for our current situation and our future situations.
Yep. So what you just said is the perfect example in action of how to utilize the work that you all do in other areas, in other planning areas, and other policy areas. That's the perfect example, because by getting that put in there, it ensures that it lives somewhere that is real, as opposed to like us asking or what's viewed as complaining, but actually saying this is an integral part of this city. The other thing I want to add, because I want to hurry up and finish, is that I don't think people make the connection between the health the healthiness of schools and school systems, on real estate prices, on taxes, on the amount of money that city systems have to work with when they're not fully, realizing the potential of their schools. Like it's a very real thing. It's a centered thing because literally the school system is an indicator of the future health and vitality of a city, right? So that's the other thing the Education Commission can kind of center is like, this is everything. We're talking about, the next 5 or 10 years of this city immediately, because if these young people are not prepared to be full, involved citizens and have a job and, transportation and all these things, then it's not going to work the way we envision. Whether we build things or don't build things, the young people need to be utilized. The other thing is we're beginning budget discussions internally first. So city manager's office, mayor's office, internal budget discussions for the next fiscal year. So again, that's an opportunity also to just be aware of what's coming down the line in terms of things like transportation and some other things that we've been talking about. So I'll in the next meeting, I'll give an update on where we are with some of those projections for the upcoming budget. We earlier today I met about our first planning conversation about the internship program. I sometimes I feel like when I'm talking about this, because I feel like it's a little of my baby a little bit, and I've been working on relinquishing my ownership issues with that, mostly because I have a dream, because I believe that providing paid internship and apprenticeship and mentorship programming is incredibly valuable for young people, particularly when we talk about some of the gun violence that's been happening, some of the other stuff in terms of truancy and kind of young people being aimless. I think it's an opportunity for us to activate some of these young people. So I'll keep you all in the loop on that, because I probably mentioned this before, but my kind of broad idea is a summer of opportunity for young people, from middle school all the way up through high school, with the goal of finding some useful activity or paid internship or just something for young people, like with the goal of getting all of the young people we can involved in something, right? And I know that's, it's kind of heady, but my hope is that we can compel our systems to work towards that. So keep an eye out for that.
Perfect. I think I've invited Mr. Dillard to come to the January 24th meeting as well, and so I'll check back in with him and see if that's still an available calendar date for him.
Yeah,
to talk to us.
Okay. Right. So that's the next thing, is the mentorship program. We finished doing the city. We decided that we're going to have city employees I probably mentioned that, set aside time to mentor, to be mentors. So we had the signups. Our trainings are happening next week as well. A lot's happening next week, but our trainings for this are happening next week. I signed up, and my schools of choice were Eastport, Annapolis Middle, and Bates. Mostly because of proximity, because it'll be during my workday, but also because I feel I have a vested interest in those particular geographic areas. So look out for that. The other is
Before you move from that, Will, can I ask a question? So for city employees who are participating in the mentoring program, but don't have much exposure or experience with the Annapolis Public Schools, how can we help them help their student?
That's a good question. I think what would be best, and actually,
I'd also like to tie in. So sometimes they have, people have a parent who is working two crazy hours and trying to keep kids fed, to tune into the, Bates PTA Facebook page to learn of events and learn of like, oh, the field trip sign up is this coming, blah, blah, blah. And to like, it's a lot of work with
Yeah.
the school. And like, you have to have an adult who helps keep the kid connected and helps them get into signups and helps all those things.
Yeah.
And so if those city employees can be, you know, a mentor and a linkage to the positive things in our schools, how can we help those who are not experienced with that navigate the system? And like, okay, here's the Bates PTA Facebook page. Here's the Annapolis Middle page. You know, here's what's going on at Germantown.
Okay.
So keep that in mind to offer that we can help connect them.
That's a really good point. I will say that Andre, because Andre, and I know you have him coming, the training, my assumption is they're going to go over a little of that in the training, but
is he doing the training?
I think he is. And he may have, but I think that creates an opportunity that it might be somewhat of a blind spot or something he hasn't thought about, because I do believe that some of these city employees, some of which probably don't even live in Annapolis, and have really no like environmental knowledge of like, you know, what's going on here. I think that would be helpful. So I will mention that to him. And you can probably mention it to him as well.
I'd be happy to offer.
Yeah, because you know, that's a good point. That's a really good point. And so, to be honest, I think this is a bit of a pilot in terms of city employees, because we couldn't mandate it, but I was definitely giving the hard sell. You know, like really trying to get. And so, you know, when that happens a lot, you know how mentorship stuff work. Everyone is not like naturally understanding the best way to be a mentor or to be like a model for young people. So I think it will be a learning experience for some of them, but at very least, it is an indication that it is important, right, to the mayor and to others, because we did like aggressively try to get these city employees, you know.
I think it's a great plan. I mean, as we all know, you know, the elephant in the room is that our false reputation precedes us, right, for our schools. And I think even among our city employees, I think if you don't have an opportunity to experience our schools and how awesome they are, then you are often misunderstanding what's actually happening in our schoolhouses. And I think it's really important. So I think I know you can't mandate, but whatever you can do to incentivize, and even if somebody doesn't want to be a mentor, but, you know, volunteer. I mean, you know, okay, you don't want to be a mentor, but hey, you know what, they need volunteer readers, or they need, you know, whatever it is.
Robotics coordinators or.
Right.
You know,
Exactly. You know, club aid, whatever, you know, or somebody to come in on career day and talk about what it's like to work in public works, or, you know, that type of thing. I think that anything you can do, I find that every time somebody walks inside one of our school buildings who has never been there before, and especially if they walk in with maybe not the most positive preconception about our school, they walk out completely, you know, their opinion has been completely changed. So I think it's really important, and I think it's really important for the kids to see our community interacting with us. So
yep, I agree. I every year I try to speak at several schools, and you know, it's nothing that connects you to understanding why you do what you do more than when you connect with young people. I mean, number one, they're completely, you know, unadulterated and honest, right? Like,
they'll tell you.
Yeah, like who are you supposed to be? So it's you know, I agree with you, Jess. The other thing is the Cure Violence program that was awarded to the county health department. Is going to be housed in Harbor House. That it's going to be up and running very shortly. The last meeting that we had, it was that hopefully by the beginning of February, they'll be on site and beginning trainings and some other things. And for those who don't know, that's a violence interruption program, which means hopefully at a different level than the police department and some other programming that comes out of the city. It is in the middle of actually having interaction with those people who are more closely involved in the kind of violence that happens at the community level. And so this is not like what happened in Baltimore in terms of their violence interruption stuff. This is going to be a lot more small town, personal, developing relationships and just having an ear to the ground. It's going to be done by Bishop Palmer and Troy Stansberry. They both jointly got the grant to do the work with some guidance from our police department. And of course, I'm kind of our liaison with the health department to work on that. So hopefully that'll deal with nothing is a magic pill, but we really need to get it really dealing with the amount of gun violence and other violence that's happening in our community. So anything we can do towards that is great. So that's an update on that. The other thing is we were talking about Eric Lashinsky. So with the CNI, which is the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, the redevelopment part, the next step for them is they're resubmitting an RFQ for a developer. So they're at the phase now where they're beginning to look at a developer for this site in terms of Harbor House and Eastport Terrace and Eastport. The part for me also, because I know we've had a lot of conversations, I was involved in a conversation at work. We were discussing the recent shootings and the amount of violence, and my condolences go out to those who have close proximity to that, including Jess, and who have to deal with that. Is that there's like, to me, there's again that connection between our education, right? Our education, our schools, and how much they're supported and how much we're able to really create those safe spaces, but also bring them closer into communities and with families. So left out of that conversation a lot is that connection. That's why another reason, this is another selling point for why we really need to get the Education Commission activated and centered in a lot of these conversations, because there is a connection between, I believe, there's a connection between what's happening in communities and how our children are being prioritized with things like mental health and the social work part, right? Like all of that connects to me, so be on the lookout for that. I have two more things. The one thing is
Before we move from that, Will, can I just ask, Corey, if you happen to have any suggestions you want to let Will know about resources, does there need to be more safety resources in the laundry facilities, in the certain parts of the neighborhood after dark? What would make kids feel safer? And if you want to think about that or tell them now, we can do that and follow up, whatever you feel like.
I can think about it, and let me talk to some of the kids. Let me talk to my kids and maybe some of their friends.
Okay.
And then I could bring that back to you.
That sounds great.
Corey, are
Yes.
any of the young people going to the community center for any activities these days?
My kids don't, because of the violence and stuff like that, but I do know that other kids, they do go, they do attend.
Okay, because we've been working.
A question I was going to ask, what Corey just mentioned about the teen program. Just, to be upfront about it, what is the city going to do? Because I've seen that, I'm like, oh, I should make my kids go. And then last week happens and I'm like, maybe I'm not going to make my kids go. Yeah. So how is that going to be addressed in that issue?
There's going to be a lot of police and community policing outreach and engagement folks there, and there's going to be, I guess, security. But I don't have a crystal ball on that one. I'm also, I think that it is a touchy thing. The question I had is because it's not like it used to be when we were young, where it was like people, if they had disagreement, they kind of like fought or just yelled at each other a lot, but now it's like it can be a lot more serious. But so I don't know the degree to which the people who are engaging in that level of stuff would attend something like this. That's the part I don't know, right? Like I'm not sure if it's cool enough or exciting enough for them to attend. But I think that's why they're kind of piloting it to try. So I wish I did, but I don't have really like a measurement on what could transpire. I only wish for the best, and I want to be there and kind of support them a little bit in the work that they're doing on that.
Right. That's why, I mean, I want to too. That's why I just wanted to get an idea of like what's being done, just so then we as parents can make decisions.
I agree 100%. The other is this name is dubious a little bit, but it's called Safe Streets. It's a Safe Streets grant, which my initial thought was that it had to do with like safe streets and like but this is actually a grant to improve infrastructure. In some other cities, they use safe streets to mean like, literally safe streets. But we got a $683,000 grant for some immediate safety improvements on some of our streets, and also to create an action plan. But more importantly, it's to be focused a lot on Forest Drive. So that's pretty exciting, I think, because Forest Drive is a hot mess.
So this is not the same Safe Streets that we had grants for back in like 2008 through 2014. That was about violence and guns, and it was so Safe Streets. That was the grants that we got to when there was a big increase in gun violence back in 2008. Safe Streets was the program that the grants came from. Okay.
Transportation funds. So it's also on, I'm going to send out links to the Comprehensive Planning's website where they have the revised draft. They have an action summary, and they also have, I didn't click on it, but they have a whole clickable link on the Safe Streets and Forest Drive improvement plans. But just the way they've updated the comprehensive plan with the yellow and red labeling of where sidewalks are missing on one side of the street or on both sides of the streets. They could benefit from the knowledge in this group of when your kids or your neighbors are walking to school, what have they told you is the rough places.
Exactly. So that's definitely the connection with mentioning that is we had some years ago, we had quite a bit of issue with transportation and young people walking all the way to Annapolis Middle School and, trying to make it from various parts of Forest Drive to the other, and how dangerous that is. And so that's where, like, I think, being aware of what plans there are and actually being there. If you go to the city's website, you can actually join on to be on committees and kind of working committees that are working on this action plan, which I think is in the context of what we're speaking of. I think it would be important for some of us to join in on that, just to be aware and also bring up some of these issues we know in terms of young people having to get from point A to point B. And then lastly, we did a city survey. I don't know, we had 500 residents who responded. I don't know if any of you all took the survey, but we got the results back. And so I'm not sure. I tried to find out how I could get the kind of, usually there's like a one-pager or something that kind of details out or pulls out some of that feedback and puts it into a kind of palatable narrative that helps us understand where we are with things. And I imagine that's coming. So I think there's something on the city's website also where you can probably access a little bit of that information, but I'm excited to hear what comes out of that. Even though, we did 500, I think that was kind of the range that they wanted anyway, the max, but we do have 40,000 people in the city. So,
What were the questions asked? Well,
they were asked between, I think, November and December.
no, like what kind of questions? What was it
Oh,
focused on?
it's-
Quality of life or?
Yeah, it ran the gamut. I mean, it was questions obviously about like services, questions about access, questions about things like transportation and some other things that I think were pretty good. And I think one may also have been about safety also. So or a couple may have been about safety. So be on the lookout for that. And I think I could go on, but I think that the what I heard that I'm going to follow up on is for the mayor and the council to elevate a little the need for there to be kind of policy recommendations and things elevated from the Education Commission. So I have a check-in tomorrow that I'll follow up with that on, and then in terms of
ask them all to attend the January 8th legislative breakfast with the BOE.
Yep.
7:30 a.m.
Okay.
So, okay.
All right.
Great. Thank you so much for that. That's great connection with our city partners.
Sorry.
Laura, I wanted to bring up, so I'm going to, before people have to scatter, I want to make sure that we have a quorum for, I'm going to put forth a motion that the Annapolis, here's the rough wording, Rachel. The Annapolis Education Commission recommends that Dr. Bedell and the Board of Education place an additional social worker position at Annapolis High School to fulfill the demonstrated need in their student body. Something like that. So if we can have, this is something we've raised before. If we need to have discussion, I'm welcome to have discussion or friendly amendment or anything. Otherwise, if we want to skip discussion and go to a second for the motion and then vote on that. Enid?
Can Laura put that up so we can all see it and have a minute to look at and digest it?
Okay, it's the same motion we've made multiple times about making that recommendation to the Board of Ed. Rachel, are you able to share your screen? Do you know how to do that?
Let me see if I can.
Madeline, do you know where the share screen buttons are for her?
Should be the
Yes,
green button
there-
in the center at the bottom.
I think I found it. Let me see if this works. I'm not sure if I have this in the right portion of the meeting, but here,
Amazing.
here's what we're looking at. You see that?
Yep. You can just skip the in their student body and just to fulfill the demonstrated need of students. Okay. All right. Do we have a second for the motion? I see.
Can we request, not recommend?
We could. We could, friendly amendment accepted. Annapolis Education requests. How about we fund and place an additional, so they have to fund it first. The funding is done by the Board of Ed. They can't determine where it places. There we go.
Should we say fund in place the needed social worker or additional makes it seem like it's.
Well,
more-
there is one there now. There is one social
Yeah.
worker at the high school now, Enid. So we would have to say additional to the one existing social worker.
We're
That's
At
gonna
what,
say
least
a
one more.
second.
Or place. Okay, find the place.
At least one more social worker position. I don't know. Just I see where you're going with that, Enid, to make it more
Yeah,
specific.
okay. I accept the at least one more.
got to take away position then.
Okay. Well, they fund, the board funds positions. And-
But if it looks like, I mean, a position can be there without being fulfilled.
Sure.
So that's all I'm saying.
Okay. At least one more social
Yeah.
worker.
I don't know, fulfill the demonstrated need. That's bad.
Okay. Amendments accepted. Do we have a second on the motion?
Do we want to say instead of need of students, need of student, to demonstrated need of the student population?
I would say so.
Mhm.
Sure. Okay, amendment accepted. Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, Enid, you have your hand up. Do you?
You asked it for a second. I was giving you a second.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you. Okay. So then Rachel will take this off so I can see everybody's faces. And we'll stop sharing. Great. Okay, so all in favor of the, please raise your hand in the box if you can, or take your
Aye.
phone if you don't want to raise your hand, like just take your.
Should we do a roll call?
Yes.
we do a roll call. Ward 1,
Yes.
Ward 2, Jamie's here.
Yes.
Ward 3, Enid.
Yes.
Ward 4 is absent. Ward 5 is missing. Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 7.
Oops.
Yes. Word is yes.
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Technologically.
Ward 8.
Yes.
Okay. At large Pam.
Yes.
At large Odessa. I'll come back to her. At large Grace.
Yes.
Okay. At large Janet. Yes. At large Odessa, are you there? We can't hear you if you are there.
Yes.
Yes.
You
Okay.
can't hear me?
Now we can
Uh-huh.
hear. Thank you. Okay.
Yes.
Motion passes and will be transmitted to the city and Dr. Bedell's office and the Board of Education. Okay, great. Thank you, people. Laura, could you pull up a few, something from the file that I sent? There is, what do I have in there? There's one on Dr. Bedell's budget. I just wanted to, this is the press release that was sent out, and it details, he has added social emotional positions for funding, for proposed funding. He's also added programmatic things like middle school sports, which has been identified if you read the notes from the city and county meeting on September 18th. That was identified by some of our principals and other mentors as a real need. So there's a number of things in his budget that we want to speak up about, a lot of those things that he is proposing.
You want me to bring up the press release?
Yeah, bring up the press release, please. Okay, if we scroll down, yeah, teacher funding, 3% COLA. Yep, so 8.5 school counselors, 8 school psychologists, 6 social workers. We want one of those social workers at Annapolis High, and 2 pupil personnel workers. Odessa, do you know anything? I can ask Bob Mosier how many pupil personnel workers we have currently and how many, like, if we have enough of them at Annapolis High to get our kids in for the attendance?
No, no, I really don't know.
Okay.
I can find out.
If you can find out, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Great.
You want me to do it now or what?
No, we're almost at the end of the meeting, but if you can find out and get that back to me. And also, just a point, if anyone has information for me, can you send it to the Annapolis Education Commission at Gmail account? Because if it's sent to my personal account, sometimes I have a hard time finding it, digging through and sending it over to the commission account. So anything school related, please send to me at the Annapolis Education Commission account. Okay, Laura, so there's also something on the FAFSA sign up. So I wanna bring this up that if any of you have middling or better skills with bureaucracy, can you think about having a goal of helping a certain number of teenagers fill out the FAFSA? I think one of the problems we have in Annapolis is that a lot of our kids graduate and they don't know what they're going to do. So they don't fill out any forms for later. So if you don't have a FAFSA, then you can't like figure out how much aid you could get, or you know, a lot of kids can attend for much reduced prices, get scholarships if they have a FAFSA filled out. So this, if you scroll back up, this is for undocumented students in financial aid. It tells you how your parent does not have to be documented or have a social security number. If they have a taxpayer identification number, that's great, you put it in. If they don't have one, that field can be left blank. So all of our students should be helped with this option, that when they figure out later on, hey, I want to attend the welding program at Anne Arundel Community College, they have the paperwork in place that can get them funding to help them do that. But it's a stumbling block that too many of our kids, because they don't instantly know what they want to do, they don't get to it later on. So then they're 19, 20, 21 without ways to know how to access career training and college training. So I just want to point that out.
You fill out FAFSA this year for college or whatever
So you
next
fill out-
year, or do you fill it out?
For next fall, for August or September of next fall, you fill it out now. And it determines, they give it a new name, but it determines the amount your family would have to pay. Also, you have to fill out FAFSA if you want to apply for any of the senatorial or state delegate scholarships. And that shows the amount that your family is able to pay toward it. And so if you have a really low expected family contribution number, that just demonstrates your need to the people on the committee, like me, who are trying to give out dollars from the state delegates and the state senator. So FAFSA is really important for our kids to get money and get opportunities, even if they don't know where they're going to go. Having this placeholder of, this is the amount our family can afford or not afford, and this is why we need aid, is important for our student. So I'd like to make that put that on everybody's radar. And so if you need help with that, reach out to me, reach out to your guidance counselors. You know, I'll get some more information about that. But there's lots of great YouTube videos that have little tutorials about it. They do a really good job on the FAFSA website to help people through it. So I wanted to bring that up. Okay, next, Laura, what else is on there? Okay, can you bring up the Anne Arundel Women Grant Program thing? Okay, I want, and Jamie and anybody else at an elementary school, Pam, if you know of any nonprofits that need this, that help students, Yeah, which one is it?
Am I not seeing it?
Okay. I will send it around to people. So the Anne Arundel Women Giving Together, the grants are open now, January 1st. They close February 1st. And they have information sessions to help people with applicants, but it's for nonprofits. And they like an education focus. So any PTA, any other community organization that needs to put in a grant, please do so.
Oh, wait, hang on, I found it.
If you need help writing those grants, let us know. Yep, this is it. Yep, grant application. Keep going down. Keep going down. Yeah. So the grants are sent out in May. There's a January 9th information Zoom sessions for prospective applicants if they can make them. If not, you know, I'll attend it and let you know how it is. But this is a big chunk of money just for the Anne Arundel community that we'd like to. And so I know they've funded perhaps Charting Careers and other places, but keep this in mind for your small organizations. I know Annapolis High PTA was bemoaning that they couldn't fund the teacher grants this year at a high enough level. So I'll make sure that they get this and put in something for next year. So does anybody, Laura, do you want to bring up the thing that you sent me from Bates about the health committee?
Oh, did I? No, I think Jess sent that, but yeah, hang on, let me bring that up.
So here's a good opportunity for any members. Anne Arundel AACPS is looking for committee members on revising the human health and sexuality curriculum. So here we go, Health Materials Committee. So this is from Cynthia Bischoff, who's in the partnerships and office, writing to the PTO leaders, the AACPS Health Education Materials of Instruction Review surrounding the specific health topic in the Family Life and Sexuality unit. So they are looking for volunteers. So that is something to look at. Laura, is there any other things in the folder that we want to bring up? And if any of our members has things you want to mention? If Germantown's doing anything, Pam, if you know of anything at Hillsmere, Enid, I don't know what school you're connected with. Here we go, Jess.
This is coming up next Thursday, June 11th. Yep. January 11th, from 6 to 7 p.m. A virtual college countdown workshop that the AACPS Family Academy is holding. I just sent this to you. I'm sorry, I forgot to send that previously, but I think, you know, for anyone who's thinking about the college process, it's a good thing to share. So that's from 6 to 7. I also wanted to announce that in Eastport, we are having a Eastport community conversation at 6:30 on the 11th. There's like 700 things happening on the 11th. It's also the Martin Luther King dinner, which I didn't realize when we scheduled the Eastport community conversation, or I wasn't aware at that point. But anyway, it's going to be held at the fire department, the Eastport Volunteer Fire, at the Eastport Fire Station, to discuss all things community, including education and safety and everything else. It is open to the public, those who are interested in Eastport and community, and I hope to see those of you who are interested there. So that's at 11. It starts at 6:30 at the Eastport Fire Station on the 11th.
Okay, Jess, who's facilitating that or sponsoring it, or can people, like, if they can't attend, because they're at the Board of Ed meeting. Can people submit comments or questions or?
It's on Thursday. Is the Board of Ed meeting also on Thursday?
The public hearing, the budget public hearing is on Thursday, the 11th.
Okay, it's me and some of my neighbors just got together, decided that we wanted to have a community conversation. So you can reach out to me. It's posted on the eSport forum. I am working on possibilities of having it be a hybrid event so that, you know, it can be, so that people can participate if they're not able to make it in person. And hopefully this is not the only one, it's just the first of many. We want to talk about all the different ways to build and grow and nurture community within eSport. So.
Thank you. Thank you for initiating that. Appreciate it. Okay. Does anyone else have any unfinished business that we have not touched upon? Oh, I do. So transportation issues. I do want to mention that I'm gonna call Mr. Moore tomorrow, the city transportation director, because he had reached out earlier with some, I think to Jess, with some possibilities of changes or additions to the Brown line, adding a stop near the top of Forest Drive, Riva Festival Plaza. So we want to find out more. We want to encourage the city to get city transportation all the way to the Annapolis High and swim and pool and county complex. So we're still working on that. The policy committee for Board of Ed met yesterday. They did not deem to review the transportation policy yet that we have requested. So we are hoping and going to press and see if they can put it on the February agenda to introduce. We're coming up upon about 10 months since we've suggested it. So I want to follow up on that. Okay. Anybody else have any unfinished business?
Okay. Well, my computer keeps going in and out, but the information that you sent to us, today about the numbers in the magnet programs.
Yeah,
Laura, are we going to discuss this?
Pardon me? Are we going to have a discussion about it? Is that? Okay. Laura, can you pull that up on the screen?
Something is wrong.
I'm sorry, Odessa, you're cutting in and out and I can't quite hear you.
Yeah, there's something wrong with my computer. Maybe let me go on my phone. Okay.
Okay. All right. So Laura's pulled this up. So I emailed this to all of our members and I think to our PTA leaders in town. Because there was a question of, well, how many magnet students are, how many Annapolis cluster students are already magnet students in the programs? So within Bates Middle School, and like Laura, how many students are at Bates? 900 some, 700, 600?
About 700.
About 700. So in the Apex Arts subset of the program, it's 127 students from within our own cluster. Do you know how many students are general studies students and how many are Apex Arts at Bates, roughly?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, no worries.
So when you say
wait, doesn't that stay right there? Sorry, Odessa. It says 127 or
no,
it doesn't include the other magnet people.
It doesn't include the other magnet students. So,
right. That wouldn't include like kids that come from Crofton to go to Bates, for example.
Right.
I had that conversation with myself 5 times already today. I'm sorry for not remembering it.
That's okay. So it just shows us that 69 Annapolis students go to STEM middle at Central Middle School out of district. And then Annapolis High, Apex Arts, 62 of our students and 27 students go out of our school to Broadneck. The MYP at Annapolis High School. Jess, is that just everybody from Annapolis Middle continuing on to high school?
That is all freshmen and sophomores. We have 1,098 freshmen and sophomores. All freshmen and sophomores at Annapolis High are
Considered.
MYP students, just like all 727 Annapolis cluster, all,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
All students at Annapolis Middle School are IB MYP students, and all freshmen and sophomores at Annapolis High School are MYP students.
So I know, does every sophomore in the school do a personal project anymore? Or like, so what's the difference between what our freshmen and sophomores are getting at Annapolis High versus any other high school? What
IB is a learning, is a teaching. It's not just like they're getting extra science or extra art. IB is an entire way of teaching a curriculum. So that's what they're getting differently, right? That's the difference between being an IB MYP student at Annapolis Middle or Annapolis High versus being a non-IB student somewhere else. It's teaching within the constructs of the IB framework and mindset and way of looking at the curriculum. So instead of there's the traditional ACPS curriculum, and they take that traditional curriculum and then they teach it within the framework of the IB program, which uses a global perspective and a global mindset. I don't know whether all students have to do the project. I know that at the project night last year, there were quite a few students. I don't know if there were.
Yeah, there's usually like maybe
500 of them, which would be, half of the
like 90 or 100 project or something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. But it's more with the MYP program. It's a lot of it has to also do with how the curriculum is taught and how it speaks to the global, international, the world in which we live.
Okay. Odessa, when you look at this, do you have any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, because it was my understanding that they only accept 75 students into the IB program in 9th grade.
I
mean, when you call Annapolis,
there were originally 100 slots in the IB program and in 9th grade, and that whittles down as kids leave.
So there's a difference, Odessa, between kids who are accepted into the IB program with the goal of completing the full 4-year program, which is 2 years at freshman and sophomore year in the MYP program and junior and senior year in the diploma program. The diploma program is a much more intense program, and that is where they go for the IB diploma. And so what you're talking about there when you're talking about the number of people that are accepted into the IB program, what that's referring to is the 4-year long-term, doing 2 years of the MYP and then 2 years of the diploma program. But all freshmen and sophomores are in the as it says, it's a whole school model of curriculum.
Yeah, I mean, Annapolis High is an IB school. So when you call the school, the first thing the person, when they answer the phone, they say Annapolis High School, IB, whatever school. But
exactly.
But my question was, how many are in the diploma program IB?
So it looks like they're split between the 2 grades. So would there only be 53 students per grade of junior and senior?
I mean, averagely, but that's also only the Annapolis cluster. So one of the reasons we asked for these numbers, Odessa, is because when we're looking at the adequate public facilities law that the city has for schools, one of the things that they do when they're looking at the population and to determine whether a school is closed, when they determine whether Annapolis High School is closed, is they subtract the number of non-Annapolis cluster students the way the law is written is that it's, so say there are 2,000 students at the school and 200 of those students are not Annapolis cluster students, right? They're out of area students who attend
Right.
Annapolis High School for whether it's ROTC or IB or whatever, or Apex or anything else. And then they take that 1,800 and put that number, compare that number with our capacity and then determine whether the school is open or closed. And so one of the reasons we wanted to get the number of Annapolis cluster was because when that decision was made, we didn't really had it when that law was made. There wasn't a lot of good information as to, okay, so if we have 300 out of area students that are attending Annapolis High School and we're subtracting those, how many Annapolis students, for example, are attending South River and Glen Burnie and Broadneck, which, as this shows, is about 126. So if something were to happen, right, and all of the Magnet students would go back to their home schools and all of the Annapolis students were to come back to Annapolis, what is the actual number of, so it's really 125 extra students that are attending Annapolis High School, right? So because if you subtract the number of cluster kids that are attending elsewhere.
Right. Well,
So
see, my concern, Jess, my concern is that, the Annapolis Education Commission, I'm really shocked to hear that the county executive didn't know anything about us. That means that something is not right. But I'm concerned about the Annapolis students. And I know that in order for these Apex programs or the IB program to work, it depends on a lot of these students coming out of the area into Annapolis High. But in the meantime, how many of our kids living in the Annapolis area district, are in these programs, and are they benefiting from these programs? That's the question.
On December 5th, I sent a public information request to Mr. Mosier asking for all of those numbers as well, right? How many students are coming from out of the area, and, so that we can really compare how many it is, right? And how many of our kids are getting in. Now, from what I think, the last number I heard was that we had 250. I heard, but I don't have it in writing, which is why I asked but I haven't gotten a response from Mr. Mosier yet. But it was December 5th. So, the 30 days isn't finished yet. But as soon as I get that, I will share that information with you, because I think if what I'm looking at is correct, then actually a fairly high percentage, it's a fairly even number of Annapolis kids. So Annapolis Apex Arts is 62, diploma program is 106, so that's 168. And then JROTC is another 24, so that's 100, and I'm really bad at math in my head, 68, 80. 92, right? I think 192. And the last I heard was that we had, I think, something like 225 or 250 out of area students attending the high school. So it's not too far off in terms of Annapolis cluster students that are in the magnet programs versus the out of area students. Plus we have 126 students from Annapolis cluster that are attending other high school, South River and Glen Burnie and Broadneck. But as soon as I get that information, I will share that, and then we can discuss it at the next meeting and try to, because I think it speaks to a lot of different things, not only the adequate public facilities, but also, like, as you're saying, like, are we making sure that our Annapolis kids are getting, the best opportunities? And, because having these programs at Annapolis High School is a huge benefit, and we want to make sure that our kids.
Because just when I worked there, I'm not going to prolong this, but when I worked at Annapolis High School and I had the Black History Club, most of my students were in the At that time, it wasn't called Apex. It was called
PBA.
what was the name of it? Huh?
PBA.
Yeah, PVA. And they didn't even live in Annapolis. You know, most of the black kids in that PVA program, they were coming. I took one girl home one day and I almost went into Howard County. You know, I mean, she was right on the line. So I didn't have many, you know, students from Annapolis. And that is my concern. Are we servicing our kids in Annapolis since this commission is called Annapolis?
Can I weigh in for just a second? Because I have a kid who's in Apex at Bates. And one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind with regard to magnet programs is that the magnet programs utilize something called consolidated busing. And what that means is that students who want to participate in a magnet program are responsible for coming up with their own transportation to get them to a bus stop. And it is not the bus stop on their street. So, for example, my child lives within the Annapolis Middle School feeder area. But in order for her to go to Bates, I would have to transport her, either drive her to school or drive her to the Eastport Library where the bus would pick up. So one of the things—
But that could be a problem then. I mean, you know, because—
And that is my point. My point is
Right.
that if you take magnet programs and put them outside of our feeder, so say you move IB or you move Apex out of Annapolis school, that means that students in the Annapolis cluster, many of whom who do not have access to private transportation, can no longer attend magnets at all. Like for our kids, having a magnet within Annapolis High makes it accessible to them.
But Dessa, you're not talking about moving magnets out. You're just talking about making sure more of our kids have access to it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because, like, for instance, my two boys went to Bates, and this is years ago. They had a morning band, right?
Right.
Okay. So of course, my kids were playing instruments, so I tried to put them in the morning band. They were denied being in the morning band because, to me, I'm gonna say it was racism. You know, well, the oldest boy, he tried to get in, and the music teacher told me, Mr. S, that he couldn't get in because he was in the 6th grade. I said, oh, okay. Well, then when my other son went over there the next year, he said, Mom, I'm going to be in the morning band. I said, well, you can't because you're in the 6th grade. But that was a lie that the teacher told, because my other boy was much more assertive than my oldest one. So my point is that we have programs, the Apex, IB, and everything. But how many of our kids are in these programs that live in Annapolis?
Well,
and I think that we should be trying to focus on that. And so
I know, Ms.
Dessa, that's an excellent point. And one of the things I think that perhaps we need to work on, especially at the elementary and middle school levels, is like, for example, having just gone through, my daughter just applied for the Apex High School program. And so she had to prepare, she had an audition, I had to provide transportation to her, to the school for the audition. She had to bring with her some of her own works, in her, she had to bring her portfolio with her, is making sure that our elementary school students are receiving the assistance that they need to apply for our middle school programs, and making sure that our middle school students are receiving the support that they need in order. And this is typically something that falls on the guidance counselors, but as we know, our guidance counselors are very overwhelmed and overworked. So this is another area where, more bodies make a difference. The more people that can assist children with the application process, and then the preparation for, I don't know, does IB require an interview process as well?
I don't know, but Laura, I'm going to have to cut off this conversation because it's already 8:20 and we have held our commission here for 2 hours and 20 minutes. And I need to recognize people's time. So we have our next meeting on January 24th, and we're going to have Mr. Dillard here from the mentorship program and Mr. Lashinsky, hopefully Mr. Dillard. And so we will follow up on this mentorship and growing students to have the capacity to use the Magnet programs. So if
And
you
as soon as
have,
I get the information, I'll send it out to everybody so that we can look at that.
if you do file a PIA request,
Do we get total numbers? Like, I mean, it's helpful to know, like, it's 62 students
Yep.
out of however many total.
I will ask for that and ask for the year of the data and everything like that. If you have any new business issues that you would like to see addressed at the next meeting, please email us at annapolis-education-commission@gmail.com. And I am now going to take a motion for adjournment of the meeting. And
Can I just, I had a new business thing that I wanted to just bring up. I was just going to ask if everybody could come with maybe one goal for our January meeting, which is our first actual meeting, of January. This is like our December meeting, but.
Yep, sounds good. And you guys can, I mean, please circulate emails between the meetings. Like, we can't only have action happen once a month. So please be involved and email us. I will distribute to the rest of the members. If you send me something, I will distribute it out to the rest of the members. So I'm entertaining for adjournment. Motion to adjourn. Can someone make that motion?
I make
A
a motion
motion to
that the meeting
adjourn.
be adjourned.
Okay, Enid has made the motion, seconded by
Grace.
Grace. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your participation and your ideas. And we hope, I'll be sending more, but we hope to see you also for the Board of Ed public testimony and Justice Eastport community meeting and lots of important meetings coming up.